My mother accused me of abuse in court. My nanny cam ended their case. The courtroom felt like a tomb as my ex-mother-in-law's lawyer stood up, smoothing her blazer with the confidence of someone about to deliver a killing blow. I gripped the wooden table until my knuckles went white, watching as Patricia Morrison, a woman who'd smiled at me across Thanksgiving dinners for 6 years, prepared to destroy my life. Your Honor, the lawyer began, her voice cutting through the silence, we have compelling evidence that Mr. David Chen has been physically and emotionally abusing his 5-year-old daughter, Emma, since his wife's passing 14 months ago. My stomach dropped. The words hit me like a freight train, even though I'd known this moment was coming. My own lawyer, Marcus Rodriguez, had warned me yesterday that Patricia was going nuclear in her custody petition, but hearing it spoken aloud in open court made it real in a way that churned my insides. Emma. My sweet, gap-toothed Emma who still asked me to check for monsters under her bed every night. The little girl who'd cried into my shoulder for weeks after we lost Sarah to that drunk driver last February. Now she was sitting somewhere in this courthouse, probably confused about why Grandma Patricia had driven down from Sacramento 3 days ago with suitcases and a team of lawyers. The child has disclosed incidents of her father striking her, pulling her hair, and screaming at her until she wet herself, the lawyer continued, consulting her notes. Mrs. Morrison witnessed concerning bruising on Emma's arms during their visit 2 weeks ago and immediately contacted Child Protective Services. Lies. Every single word was a lie, but I could see the judge, the Honorable Margaret Walsh, taking careful notes. At 60-something, Judge Walsh had a reputation for being tough on fathers in custody cases. My chest tightened as I watched her expression grow more severe with each accusation. Marcus squeezed my shoulder, a silent reminder to stay calm, but rage was building in my throat like acid. Patricia sat 3 rows behind the plaintiff's table, dabbing her eyes with tissues, playing the grieving grandmother to perfection. The same woman who told me at Sarah's funeral that I'd never be good enough for this family was now trying to take away the only piece of my wife I had left. The irony wasn't lost on me. For 5 years of marriage, Patricia had tolerated me at best. Sarah used to joke that her mother saw me as the computer programmer who stole her baby girl away to Silicon Valley. But after the accident, when grief and single parenthood had me barely keeping my head above water, Patricia had swooped in with offers to help. Sunday dinners. Overnight visits. Jennifer Walsh, the child psychologist I'd been taking Emma to since Sarah's death, had gently suggested that sometimes grieving children create elaborate stories as coping mechanisms. It's not lying in the traditional sense, she'd explained during our Tuesday afternoon session. Emma might be processing trauma in ways that blur reality and imagination. So I bought a small, discreet camera from Amazon, a $89 device no bigger than a USB drive that I tucked behind a picture frame on the living room bookshelf. I told myself it was temporary, just until I could figure out what was really happening in Emma's world. The camera captured everything, our morning routines, afternoon snacks, bedtime stories, and yes, Patricia's visits. Including the visit from 2 Sundays ago that Patricia apparently didn't know was being recorded. As her lawyer droned on about my alleged failures as a father, I caught Marcus's eye and gave him the slightest nod. We'd agreed on this signal yesterday after reviewing the footage together in his downtown office. The memory of Marcus's face when he'd watched that particular recording still gave me chills, his usual professional composure had cracked completely. Jesus Christ, David, he'd whispered, rewinding the video for the 3rd time. This changes everything. But we couldn't play our ace too early. Patricia's team had to commit fully to their narrative first, dig themselves in so deep that the truth would be devastating when it came to light. Mr. Chen has also been neglecting Emma's basic needs, the lawyer continued, her voice gaining momentum. The child has been late to school 17 times this semester, often arrives hungry, and her teacher reports that she frequently appears tired and disheveled. More half-truths twisted into weapons. Yes, we'd been late to school, because Emma had started having anxiety attacks every morning, crying and clinging to me, terrified I wouldn't be there when she got home. The same fear that made her climb into my bed every night around 2 a.m., which explained why she sometimes looked tired. As for hunger, Emma had become an incredibly picky eater since losing her mother, surviving mainly on goldfish crackers and strawberry yogurt. I'd been working with a pediatric nutritionist to slowly expand her diet, but apparently Patricia saw this as evidence of neglect rather than trauma response. Judge Walsh looked up from her notes. Mrs. Morrison, I understand you're requesting emergency custody based on these allegations. Patricia stood up slowly, her silver hair perfectly styled, wearing the navy dress she'd worn to Sarah's funeral. Yes, Your Honor. I fear for my granddaughter's safety. Emma needs stability, love, and proper care while these matters are investigated. I've raised 3 successful children and have a stable home environment. The judge's pen moved across her legal pad. Mr. Rodriguez, how does your client respond to these allegations? Marcus stood, buttoning his jacket. At 52, he commanded respect in family court, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. Everything depended on the next few minutes. Your Honor, my client categorically denies these baseless accusations. Mr. Chen has been a devoted single father under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. We believe Mrs. Morrison's claims stem from her own grief and misplaced blame regarding her daughter's death. He paused, meeting my eyes briefly. We're prepared to present evidence that will not only clear Mr. Chen's name, but reveal the true motivation behind these custody proceedings. The courtroom went dead silent. Even Patricia's lawyer looked caught off guard by Marcus's confident declaration. I watched Patricia's face carefully, the same face that used to light up when Sarah walked into a room, and saw something flicker across it. Fear. Calculation. Judge Walsh leaned forward. What kind of evidence, Mr. Rodriguez? Video evidence, Your Honor. Clear, unambiguous footage that documents the true nature of Mr. Chen's parenting and reveals the actual source of any coaching this child may have received. Patricia's lawyer shot to her feet. Objection, Your Honor. We haven't been provided with any video evidence during discovery. This is trial by ambush. My heart hammered against my ribs. Marcus had warned me this moment would be tricky. We deliberately held back the nanny cam footage because California law required both parties to consent to recordings in private homes, except when child welfare was at stake. It was a legal gray area that could either save me or destroy my case entirely. Mr. Rodriguez, Judge Walsh said sternly, explain why this evidence wasn't disclosed earlier. Your Honor, the recordings were made by my client for legitimate child safety concerns in his own home. Morrison's claims that Emma has disclosed abuse incidents. I believe it would be appropriate to have a court-appointed child advocate review Emma's statements first. I suspect we'll find some inconsistencies. Patricia's lawyer was frantically shuffling through papers. Your Honor, we maintain that any recordings made without consent. Your Honor, Marcus interrupted smoothly. I should mention that these recordings span several months and include multiple visits from Mrs. Morrison. They provide crucial context for understanding the timeline of any alleged abuse disclosures. The color drained from Patricia's face. I saw her calculating. How many times had she visited? What had she said? The beautiful thing about the truth is that when you're telling it, you don't have to remember your story. When you're lying, every new piece of evidence is a potential landmine. Judge Walsh made a note. Very well. We'll recess for 1 hour while I review the evidence in chambers. Bailiff, please arrange for Emma Chen to meet with court advocate Sarah Martinez during this time. As the judge stood, Patricia's lawyer leaned over to whisper something urgent in her ear. I watched Patricia's expression shift from confusion to something approaching panic. She caught my eye across the courtroom for the first time today, and I saw her recognize something in my face, the quiet confidence of a man who knows he's holding all the cards. Sarah used to tell me that her mother's greatest weakness was underestimating people she considered beneath her. Today, that weakness was going to cost Patricia everything. The recess felt like the longest hour of my life. Marcus and I sat in a small conference room down the hall from the courtroom, going over our strategy while we waited for Judge Walsh to review the nanny cam footage. Through the thin walls, I could hear Patricia's lawyer making frantic phone calls. She's probably trying to find a way to discredit the recordings, Marcus said, loosening his tie. But David, I have to ask, are you absolutely certain there's nothing on those videos that could hurt us? Any moment where you lost your temper, maybe said something you shouldn't have? The question hit harder than it should have. The truth was, I'd been far from a perfect father these past 14 months. There were nights I put Emma to bed and then sat on my kitchen floor crying until dawn. Mornings when I'd burned breakfast because I was staring at Sarah's empty coffee mug. Moments when Emma's questions about when mommy was coming home had broken me in ways I didn't know were possible. There's one incident, I admitted, rubbing my temples. About 6 weeks ago. Emma was having a really bad day, asking why mommy had to die, and I couldn't handle it. I went into the bathroom and punched the wall. She heard me, started crying. Marcus went still. Did you yell at her? Say anything inappropriate? No. God, no. I came out, apologized, and we talked about how sometimes grown-ups have big feelings too. But Marcus, what if they see that as David? He placed a hand on my shoulder. Grief isn't abuse. Showing emotion isn't abuse. You're human, and you lost your wife. Any reasonable judge will understand that. Before I could respond, there was a soft knock on the door. Sarah Martinez, the court-appointed child advocate, peeked in. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Mr. Chen. Could I speak with you briefly about Emma? My stomach clenched. Is she okay? Where is she? She's fine, she's coloring in my office with one of our volunteers. But I wanted to discuss her interview before we returned to court. Sarah sat down across from me, consulting her notes. Emma is a very bright little girl, but she's clearly been through significant trauma. The accident, I said quietly. She was in the car when. Yes, I'm aware. But Mr. Chen, I need to ask you directly, have you ever struck Emma? Pulled her hair? Screamed at her until she had accidents? The questions felt like physical blows. Never. I would never hurt my daughter. Sarah nodded slowly. That's consistent with what Emma told me. When I asked her about these incidents, she became very confused. She said Grandma Patricia told her that Daddy was too rough sometimes, but when I asked Emma to describe what too rough meant, she couldn't give me specific examples. Relief flooded through me, but Sarah wasn't finished. However, Emma did tell me something concerning. She said that during her last visit to Sacramento, Mrs. Morrison showed her pictures of bruises on a tablet and asked if Daddy had ever made marks like that on her body. Marcus and I exchanged glances. What did Emma say? She said no, but then Mrs. Morrison allegedly told her that sometimes children forget scary things, and that it would be helping Daddy get better if she could remember him being rough. Emma became very upset during this part of our conversation. My hands clenched into fists. Patricia had been coaching my 5-year-old daughter to believe I'd abused her. The manipulation was even worse than I'd imagined. There's more, Sarah continued. Emma mentioned that Mrs. Morrison took photos of some bruises on her arms 2 weeks ago, but when I asked Emma how she got those bruises, she very clearly described falling off the monkey bars at school. She even named the teacher who cleaned her up afterward, Mrs. Rodriguez. We can verify that, Marcus said immediately. School incident reports. Sarah stood up. I'll be recommending to Judge Walsh that Emma remain in your custody, Mr. Chin. But I have to warn you, Mrs. Morrison's legal team is going to argue that Emma's been coached by you to recant her statements. The irony was suffocating. Patricia coaches Emma to make false accusations, then claims I'm the one doing the coaching when the truth comes out. The nanny cam footage should clear that up, I said. Sarah paused at the door. Mr. Chin. Emma asked me something before I left her. She wanted to know if she was going to have to live with Grandma Patricia now, because she doesn't want to leave Daddy. That little girl adores you. Whatever's on that recording, I hope it's enough. As the door closed behind her, I felt the weight of everything settling on my shoulders. In 30 minutes, we'd be back in that courtroom, and Judge Walsh would have seen the footage that would either vindicate me or destroy everything I had left. Marcus checked his watch. Time to go face the music. The walk back to the courtroom felt like a death march. My legs moved on autopilot while my mind raced through every possible scenario. Judge Walsh's expression was unreadable as she took her seat, the manila folder containing my fate sitting closed on her desk. Court is back in session, she announced, her voice carrying none of the warmth I'd hoped to hear after viewing the evidence. I've reviewed the video footage submitted by Mr. Chen, spanning from September 15th through November 8th. I've also consulted with child advocate Martinez regarding her interview with Emma Chen. Patricia sat ramrod straight behind her lawyer's table, but I caught the nervous flutter of her hands smoothing her dress repeatedly. Her attorney, Janet Morrison, no relation, despite the shared surname, looked like someone who just realized she'd walked into a minefield. Before we proceed, Judge Walsh continued, I want to address the elephant in the room. Mrs. Morrison, during your October 22nd visit to Mr. Chen's residence, you had a conversation with Emma that was captured on video. Are you prepared to discuss that conversation under oath? The blood drained from Patricia's face so quickly I thought she might faint. Her lawyer shot to her feet. Your Honor, we'd like to request a brief recess to. Request denied. Mrs. Morrison, please approach the witness stand. This wasn't how I'd expected things to go. Marcus had prepared me for a systematic presentation of evidence, not this immediate confrontation. I watched Patricia stand on unsteady legs, her usual imperious confidence replaced by something that looked dangerously close to panic. The bailiff swore her in, and Judge Walsh wasted no time. Mrs. Morrison, on October 22nd at approximately 3:47 p.m., you were alone with Emma in Mr. Chen's living room while he prepared snacks in the kitchen. Do you recall this visit? Yes, Your Honor. Patricia's voice was barely above a whisper. During this time, you showed Emma photographs on a tablet device. What were these photographs? Patricia's lawyer stood again. Your Honor, I need to confer with my client. Your client is under oath, Counselor. Mrs. Morrison, please answer the question. I watched Patricia's composure crumble in real time. The woman who terrorized me for months was now trapped by her own actions, recorded in high definition on the nanny cam she'd never known existed. They were examples, Patricia said finally. Pictures I found online of bruises that might indicate abuse. The courtroom went dead silent. Even the court reporter stopped typing for a moment. And what was your purpose in showing these images to a 5-year-old child? I wanted to help Emma understand, Patricia started, then stopped, realizing she was digging her own grave. Judge Walsh leaned forward. Understand what, Mrs. Morrison? That if her father had hurt her, it was okay to talk about it. Did Emma identify with any of these images? Did she say her father had caused injuries like the ones in the photographs? Patricia's silence stretched so long that Judge Walsh repeated the question. No, Patricia whispered. She said David had never hurt her like that. And what was your response to Emma's denial? This was it. The moment that would decide everything. I held my breath as Patricia struggled with whether to lie under oath or admit to the manipulation the camera had clearly captured. I may have suggested that sometimes children block out traumatic memories, she said, her voice breaking. I told her it would help her daddy if she could try to remember. The admission hit the courtroom like a bomb. Marcus squeezed my shoulder as Patricia's lawyer closed her eyes in defeat. But Judge Walsh wasn't finished. Mrs. Morrison, in that same conversation, you also discussed what Emma should say if anyone asked about her relationship with her father. Do you recall those instructions? Patricia looked like a cornered animal. Whatever else was on that recording, it was clear there were more damning revelations to come. I don't recall giving Emma any specific instructions, Patricia said, but her voice wavered like a lie detector going haywire. Judge Walsh consulted her notes. Let me refresh your memory. At 4:03 p.m. on that same visit, you told Emma, and I quote, sometimes when grown-ups ask you questions about daddy, you need to think really hard about times when he made you scared or sad. Even if it seems like a little thing. Do you remember saying this? Patricia's face went ashen. Her lawyer, Janet Morrison, was frantically writing notes, probably calculating how much damage control would be needed. But there was no coming back from this. I was just trying to help her process her feelings, Patricia stammered. By coaching her to reinterpret normal parenting moments as abuse. Judge Walsh's tone had shifted from neutral to incredulous. Mrs. Morrison, did you also tell Emma that her father gets angry like the man who hurt mommy? My breath caught in my throat. Even knowing Patricia had been manipulating Emma, hearing that specific phrase felt like a physical blow. She compared me to the drunk driver who'd killed Sarah, poisoning my daughter's mind with the idea that I was dangerous like the man who destroyed our family. Patricia's silence was answer enough. Your Honor, Marcus stood up. We have additional footage from Mrs. Morrison's November 1st visit that shows her taking photographs of playground injuries on Emma's arms and legs, injuries Emma clearly states came from normal childhood activities. Mrs. Morrison can be heard instructing Emma to remember how much this hurt while photographing completely innocent bruises from a fall at school. That's enough, Patricia's lawyer said sharply, rising to her feet. Your Honor, my client is clearly distraught and... Your client is under oath and will answer my questions, Judge Walsh cut her off. Mrs. Morrison, when you contacted Child Protective Services on November 5th, did you tell them these photographs were taken immediately after alleged abuse incidents with Mr. Chen? Patricia looked like she was drowning. I may have implied a connection. You filed a false report with CPS, knowing these injuries were from playground accidents. I was protecting my granddaughter. The outburst shattered Patricia's careful facade. For the first time since this nightmare began, I saw the real woman behind the grieving grandmother act, someone consumed by rage and desperate for control. Judge Walsh let the silence hang for a moment. Mrs. Morrison, step down. I need to speak with both legal teams in chambers immediately. As Patricia stumbled back to her seat, I caught a glimpse of raw hatred in her eyes when she looked at me. This wasn't just about custody anymore, this was about a woman who'd lost her daughter and needed someone to blame, someone to punish. During the 15-minute recess, Marcus could barely contain his optimism. David, she's buried herself completely. False CPS reports, coaching a minor to make false abuse allegations, perjury, Patricia's looking at serious criminal charges. But something nagged at me. Patricia wasn't stupid, just desperate. And desperate people make dangerous choices. When court resumed, Judge Walsh's expression was grim. After reviewing all evidence and consulting with the child advocate, I'm prepared to rule on the emergency custody motion. My heart hammered against my ribs. Everything came down to this moment. Mrs. Morrison's petition for emergency custody is denied. Full custody remains with Mr. Chen, with supervised visitation rights for Mrs. Morrison pending a psychological evaluation. Relief flooded through me, but Judge Walsh wasn't finished. Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal charges including filing false police reports and child endangerment. Mrs. Morrison, you're prohibited from any unsupervised contact with Emma pending the outcome of that investigation. Patricia shot to her feet, her composure finally shattering completely. You can't do this. He's not even her real family. I'm her blood. The bailiff moved toward her as her lawyer tried to calm her down, but Patricia wasn't finished. Sarah never should have married him. This is all his fault, she's dead. The courtroom erupted. Patricia's words hung in the air like a toxic cloud, and suddenly everything clicked into place. This wasn't just about custody, this was about Patricia's twisted belief that I was responsible for Sarah's death. Ma'am, please sit down, the bailiff said firmly, moving closer to Patricia, but she was spiraling completely out of control. She was driving to pick him up from work that night because his car was in the shop, Patricia screamed, pointing at me with a shaking finger. If she hadn't been on Highway 101 at 7:30 p.m., if she hadn't been rushing because David called saying he was ready early. Mrs. Morrison. Judge Walsh's voice cracked like a whip. You will sit down and compose yourself or you will be removed from my courtroom. But Patricia was beyond reason now. The mask of the grieving grandmother had shattered, revealing the venomous hatred she'd been nurturing for 14 months. Emma deserves to know the truth about why her mother is dead. He killed my daughter as surely as if he'd been behind that wheel. The bailiff reached Patricia just as her legs gave out, and she collapsed back into her seat, sobbing uncontrollably. Her lawyer, Janet Morrison, looked mortified as she tried to calm her client, but the damage was done. I felt sick. Not because of Patricia's accusations, I blamed myself enough in those first months after the accident, but because this was the poison Emma had been exposed to during those loving visits to Sacramento. This hatred, this twisted narrative that painted me as the villain in our family's tragedy. Your Honor, Marcus said quietly, I think Mrs. Morrison's outburst demonstrates exactly why supervised visitation is necessary. Judge Walsh was writing furiously. Mrs. Morrison, your supervised visitation is hereby suspended pending a complete psychological evaluation. Any future contact with Emma Chen will require court approval and therapeutic oversight. Patricia's sobs echoed through the courtroom, but she was done fighting. Her lawyer looked like she wanted to crawl under the table. Mr. Chen, Judge Walsh addressed me directly for the first time, I want to be very clear about something. After reviewing the video evidence, it's obvious you've been doing your best as a single father under extraordinarily difficult circumstances. The footage shows a patient, loving parent dealing with a traumatized child. There is absolutely no evidence of abuse. Relief washed over me, but Judge Walsh wasn't finished. However, this case has revealed that Emma has been subjected to psychological manipulation that could have lasting effects. I'm ordering immediate family therapy with Dr. Sarah Kellerman. She specializes in helping children process false memories and coaching trauma. The irony wasn't lost on me. Emma would need therapy to recover from the damage Patricia had done while accusing me of being the one harming her. Additionally, the judge continued, I'm sealing all records of these proceedings to protect Emma's privacy. Mrs. Morrison, if you have any genuine concern for your granddaughter's welfare, you'll use this time to address whatever grief and anger led you to this courtroom today. As court was dismissed, I watched Patricia being helped from the courtroom by her lawyer, still crying but no longer the composed woman who'd arrived this morning with such confidence. Part of me felt sorry for her, she'd lost Sarah too, and grief could twist people into unrecognizable versions of themselves. But mostly, I felt an overwhelming need to see my daughter. David, Marcus said, gathering his papers, Emma's waiting in the children's center downstairs. Sarah Martinez will bring her to you in a few minutes. I nodded, still processing everything that had happened. Marcus, what happens now? With the criminal charges? That's up to the DA, but filing false CPS reports is serious. Patricia's probably looking at felony charges. He paused. I know this doesn't feel like celebrating, but you won, David. Emma's safe, and she's staying with you. Through the courtroom windows, I could see the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the parking lot. Somewhere in this building, my daughter was waiting for me, probably confused about why Grandma Patricia had been crying, wondering when she could go home and have mac and cheese for dinner like any normal Thursday. The nanny cam had saved us both, but the real work was just beginning. The children's center felt surreal after the intensity of the courtroom. Soft lighting, colorful murals of cartoon animals, tiny chairs arranged around low tables covered with crayons and coloring books. It was designed to be comforting, but all I could think about was how many other kids had waited here while their lives were decided by strangers in black robes. Sarah Martinez appeared in the doorway with Emma beside her, my daughter's small hand tucked trustingly into the advocate's palm. Emma looked so tiny in her purple dress, the one Sarah had bought her last Christmas, now getting snug in the shoulders. When she saw me, her face lit up with the kind of pure joy that made every sleepless night of single parenthood worth it. Daddy. She ran toward me, and I scooped her up, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo mixed with the vanilla chapstick she'd started insisting on wearing like a big girl. Hey, Bug, I whispered into her hair, fighting back the emotion that threatened to overwhelm me. I missed you. I drew you a picture, Emma said, wriggling down to grab a paper from the table. It's us at the park with the big slide. See? That's you pushing me on the swings. The drawing showed two stick figures, one tall with black scribbled hair, one small with yellow pigtails. Simple crayon strokes that somehow captured more love than any photograph ever could. It's perfect, I told her, and meant it. Sarah Martinez touched my shoulder gently. Could I speak with you privately for just a moment, Mr. Chen? Emma, would you like to finish coloring that butterfly picture? Emma nodded eagerly, already reaching for the purple crayon. I followed Sarah to the corner of the room, keeping Emma in sight. There's something you need to know, Sarah said quietly. During my interview with Emma, she mentioned that Mrs. Morrison showed her news articles on her tablet during that October visit. Articles about the accident that killed your wife. My blood went cold. What kind of articles? Emma said Grandma Patricia showed her pictures of the bad car that hurt Mommy and read parts of the police report out loud. Including details about why your wife was driving that night, picking you up from work because your Honda was in the shop. The room seemed to tilt. Patricia hadn't just been coaching Emma about fictional abuse, she'd been poisoning my daughter's mind with the idea that I was somehow responsible for Sarah's death. Emma asked me why Mommy had to go get Daddy that night, Sarah continued. She's clearly been thinking about it, trying to understand the connection Mrs. Morrison was implying. I looked at Emma, innocently coloring her butterfly, and felt sick. How do you explain to a 5-year-old that sometimes adults let grief turn them into monsters? That the grandmother who used to bake her sugar cookies had been systematically destroying her sense of safety and trust? There's more, Sarah said. Mrs. Morrison also told Emma that you've been different since Mommy died. She specifically mentioned your crying episodes, times you've gotten frustrated, even normal things like when you burned dinner last month. Emma mentioned that Grandma Patricia said these were signs that Daddy was getting sicker. Jesus, I breathed. She's been weaponizing everything. My grief, Emma's confusion about the accident, even my normal parenting struggles. Mr. Chen, Emma loves you fiercely, but she's carrying some heavy emotional baggage now. The therapy Judge Walsh ordered is crucial. Dr. Kellerman specializes in helping children separate reality from coached memories, but it's going to take time. Emma looked up from her coloring. Daddy, can we go home now? I want to show you my new loose tooth. Of course, Bug. I walked over and knelt beside her chair. Are you ready for pizza night? It's Thursday. Her face brightened. With extra cheese. With extra cheese. As we gathered Emma's artwork in her small backpack, my phone buzzed with a text from Marcus, *DA's office wants to meet tomorrow at 10 a.m. Patricia's looking at multiple felony charges. Also, local news caught wind of the story, Channel 7 called asking for comment. Might want to prepare Emma for some attention, *. My stomach dropped. The sealed records would protect Emma's privacy in court documents, but there was nothing stopping reporters from digging into the broader story. Tech executive fights off false abuse charges from deceased wife's mother was exactly the kind of custody battle that made headlines. Daddy? Emma tugged on my sleeve. Why did Grandma Patricia look so sad in court today? I froze. You saw Grandma Patricia? Ms. Sarah took me to get a drink of water, and I saw her in the hallway. She was crying really hard. Did I do something wrong? Kneeling to Emma's eye level, I chose my words carefully. No, sweetheart. You didn't do anything wrong at all. Grandma Patricia is very sad because she misses Mommy so much, and sometimes when people are that sad, they don't make good choices. Are we still going to visit her in Sacramento? The question hung in the air like a landmine. How do you tell a child that her grandmother, who she'd loved and trusted, had tried to destroy her family? Not for a while, Bug. Grandma Patricia needs time to feel better. Emma nodded solemnly, accepting this explanation with the resilience that never ceased to amaze me. Can we still send her a Christmas card? We'll see, sweetheart. We'll see. As we walked toward the parking garage, Emma's small hand in mine, I realized our fight was far from over. Patricia might be facing criminal charges, but the damage she'd done to Emma's sense of security couldn't be undone by a judge's ruling. The real battle was just beginning. The parking garage felt like a sanctuary after the courthouse chaos, but my relief was short-lived. As Emma and I reached my Honda, finally out of the shop after 3 weeks, a woman in a red blazer stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, holding a microphone and trailing a cameraman. Mr. Chen. Rebecca Walsh, Channel 7 News. Can you comment on today's custody ruling and the criminal charges being filed against Patricia Morrison? I instinctively stepped in front of Emma, who immediately pressed against my legs. No comment. Please leave us alone. Our sources indicate Mrs. Morrison accused you of child abuse using fabricated evidence. How does it feel to be vindicated? The cameraman was already rolling, the lens trained on Emma's frightened face peering around my hip. My protective instincts kicked into overdrive. Turn that camera off. Now. This is a public space, Mr. Chen. The people have a right to know. The people have a right to know that you're traumatizing a 5-year-old who just spent 4 hours in family court. I fumbled for my car keys, hands shaking with adrenaline. Emma, get in the car, sweetheart. But Emma was frozen, staring at the camera with wide eyes. Daddy, why are they taking pictures of us? Rebecca Walsh crouched down, trying to get closer to Emma's eye level. Hi there, sweetie. Can you tell us how you're feeling about staying with Daddy? That crossed every line. I scooped Emma up and practically threw her into the car seat, my hands trembling as I worked the safety straps. If you broadcast any footage of my daughter, I will sue you into bankruptcy. Mr. Chen, we're just trying to get the truth about what happened in that courtroom today. I slammed Emma's door and whirled around. The truth? The truth is that a grieving woman tried to destroy an innocent man and terrorized a child in the process. The truth is that my daughter has been through enough trauma for one lifetime without having cameras shoved in her face. Rebecca Walsh signaled her cameraman to keep rolling. Are you saying Mrs. Morrison deliberately fabricated evidence of abuse? I'm saying read the court records when they're unsealed. I yanked open my driver's door. And stay away from my family. As I reversed out of the parking space, I could see them in my rearview mirror, still filming. Emma was crying quietly in her car seat, clutching the butterfly picture she'd colored. Daddy, why was that lady asking questions about Grandma Patricia? My heart broke a little more. Sometimes when something happens in court, news people want to talk about it. But they shouldn't have bothered you, Bug. I'm sorry that happened. Are we going to be on TV? I hope not, sweetheart. I really hope not. But even as I said it, I knew we probably would be. By tonight, our story would be the lead segment on the evening news. By tomorrow, it would be picked up by the cable networks looking for content. Single father fights off false abuse claims was exactly the kind of story that went viral in today's media landscape. My phone rang through the car's Bluetooth system. Marcus Rodriguez's name appeared on the dashboard display. David, please tell me you didn't say anything to Channel 7. They ambushed us in the parking garage. I told them no comment, but they got footage of Emma. Shit. Sorry, Emma. Marcus's voice carried the weariness of a lawyer who dealt with too many cases that attracted media attention. The DA's office called. They want to meet tomorrow at 9 a.m. instead of 10. Apparently Patricia's lawyer reached out about a possible plea agreement. What kind of plea agreement? I don't have details yet, but David, there's something else. Patricia's been trying to contact you. She called my office 6 times this afternoon. I glanced at Emma in the rearview mirror. She'd stopped crying and was now singing quietly to herself, probably trying to self-soothe after the reporter encounter. What does she want? She claims she has information about Sarah's accident that you need to hear. Something about the police report being incomplete. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. Even facing felony charges, Patricia was still trying to manipulate the situation, still trying to drag Sarah's death into her twisted narrative. Tell her to go through the proper legal channels if she has information about the accident. I'm done being manipulated. But even as I said it, a small part of me wondered what Patricia thought she knew. What could possibly be incomplete about a police report I'd memorized word for word during those first horrible weeks after losing Sarah? Daddy, Emma said from the back seat, can we get ice cream before pizza? I think today was hard enough for ice cream. Despite everything, I smiled. You know what, Bug? I think you're absolutely right. The ice cream shop felt like stepping into a different world, one where 5-year-olds worried about sprinkles versus hot fudge instead of custody battles and criminal charges. Emma pressed her face against the glass display case, her earlier tears forgotten as she deliberated between birthday cake and cotton candy flavors. Can I have 2 scoops, Daddy? Since today was extra hard. Absolutely. I watched her eyes light up as the teenager behind the counter loaded her cone with more ice cream than she could possibly finish. For the first time in weeks, Emma looked like a normal kid again. We found a corner booth away from the windows, and I tried to ignore my phone buzzing constantly with notifications. Probably reporters who'd gotten my number somehow, or maybe well-meaning friends who'd seen the early online coverage of today's hearing. Daddy? Emma licked a drip of cotton candy ice cream from her wrist. When I talked to the nice lady today, she asked me about things Grandma Patricia said. But I don't want to get Grandma in trouble. My heart clenched. Even after everything Patricia had put her through, Emma still felt protective of her grandmother. It was exactly the kind of loyalty that Patricia had been counting on when she started her campaign of manipulation. You didn't get Grandma Patricia in trouble, Bug. Grandma got herself in trouble by not telling the truth. Emma considered this carefully, the way she always did when trying to understand adult complications. Like when I said I brushed my teeth but I really didn't, and you found out. Sort of like that, except much more serious. My phone rang again, Dr. Jennifer Walsh, Emma's therapist. I answered quickly, hoping it wasn't an emergency. David, I've been following the court proceedings through Sarah Martinez. How are you both holding up? We're having ice cream, Emma announced loudly, apparently recognizing Dr. Walsh's voice through the speaker. That sounds like exactly the right plan, Dr. Walsh said warmly. David, I wanted to let you know I've been in contact with Dr. Kellerman about the family therapy Judge Walsh ordered. We think it would be best if I continue seeing Emma individually while you both attend sessions with Dr. Kellerman. Whatever's best for Emma, I said, watching my daughter attempt to eat ice cream and color on her placemat simultaneously. There's something else. I've been thinking about Emma's recent behavioral changes, the anxiety about school, the sleep disruptions, the regression in some of her coping skills. Given what we learned today about Mrs. Morrison's coaching attempts, I believe Emma's been experiencing what we call conflicted loyalty syndrome. I lowered my voice, though Emma seemed absorbed in her coloring. What does that mean? Emma loves you, but she also loved Mrs. Morrison. When an adult-to-child trust starts planting seeds of doubt about another trusted adult, it creates internal conflict. The child knows something feels wrong, but can't articulate what. It often manifests as anxiety, sleep problems, and behavioral regression. That explains so much. The nightmares that had started 6 weeks ago. Emma's sudden reluctance to go to school. The way she'd been clinging to me more desperately lately, as if afraid I might disappear. How long will it take for her to recover? Every child is different, but with proper therapy and a stable environment, most children bounce back remarkably well. The key is helping Emma understand that none of this was her fault, and that the adults in her life now are committed to protecting her. After ending the call, I looked at Emma, who had somehow gotten more ice cream on her face than in her mouth. She caught me staring and grinned, her smile still slightly gap-toothed from a lost molar last month. Daddy, are you sad? No, Bug. I'm grateful. For what? For you. For ice cream. For the truth coming out. Emma nodded solemnly. And for extra sprinkles. Definitely for extra sprinkles. But as we finished our ice cream and headed home, I couldn't shake Dr. Walsh's words about conflicted loyalty. If Emma had been struggling with this internal conflict for weeks, how much had I missed while focusing on legal strategies and evidence gathering? How much damage had Patricia done that I still didn't even know about? The drive home should have felt triumphant, but Emma's quiet sniffling from the back seat told me we weren't out of the woods yet. As I pulled into our driveway on Maple Street, I noticed a familiar silver Lexus parked across the street, Patricia's car. My blood ran cold. Daddy, why is Grandma Patricia's car here? I grabbed my phone and immediately called 911. This is David Chen at 847 Maple Street. There's someone violating a court order by being on my property. Through my windshield, I could see Patricia sitting on our front porch steps, still wearing that navy funeral dress but now wrinkled and stained with tears. She looked up when she heard my car, and even from 50 feet away, I could see her face was ravaged by hours of crying. Sir, we're dispatching a unit now, the 911 operator said. Do not approach the individual. Stay in your vehicle until officers arrive. Emma was getting agitated in her car seat. Why can't we go inside? I want to show Grandma Patricia my butterfly picture. We have to wait for the police, Bug. Are they going to arrest Grandma? The innocence in her voice broke my heart. I don't know, sweetheart. Within minutes, 2 squad cars pulled up. Officers Martinez and Thompson approached Patricia while Officer Kim came to my window. I'd dealt with Officer Kim before, he'd been one of the responding officers the night Sarah died, and he checked on us a few times during those first awful months. Mr. Chen, we heard about the court ruling today. How long has she been here? I don't know. We just got home from ice cream. I watched as Patricia stood up slowly, her hands raised as Officer Martinez spoke to her. My daughter's in the car. Can we? Absolutely. Why don't you take Emma inside while we handle this? But as I unbuckled Emma's car seat, Patricia's voice carried across the yard. David. Please. I need to tell you about the accident. The police report, there was another car. I froze. Officer Kim stepped between us. Ma'am, you're in violation of a restraining order. You need to come with us. There was a white pickup truck. Patricia screamed as Officer Martinez guided her toward the patrol car. The witnesses saw it. Sarah swerved to avoid someone else. David, please. Emma started crying. Why is Grandma yelling? What's wrong with Mommy's car? Officer Kim looked at me sympathetically. Get her inside. We'll handle this. I carried Emma up the porch steps, her face buried against my shoulder as Patricia's voice grew more desperate behind us. David. The truck never stopped. Sarah died because someone else ran a red light. The front door had never felt so heavy. Inside our living room, I set Emma on a couch and knelt in front of her, my hands shaking as I tried to process what Patricia had just revealed. Daddy, what did Grandma mean about Mommy's car? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Marcus Rodriguez. David, I'm at the police station. Patricia's been arrested for violating the restraining order, but she's asking to speak with detectives about Sarah's accident. She claims she hired a private investigator 3 months ago who found new evidence. My legs gave out, and I sank onto the couch beside Emma. What kind of evidence? Traffic camera footage from a gas station across from the intersection. Apparently it shows a white Chevy Silverado running the red light seconds before the drunk driver hit Sarah. The PI thinks Sarah was trying to avoid the truck when she swerved into the wrong lane. The room spun around me. For 14 months, I believed Sarah died because she was rushing to pick me up from work. Patricia had weaponized that guilt, used it to poison Emma against me. But if there was another vehicle involved? Marcus, if this is true, why didn't the police find this footage during their investigation? The gas station's cameras were on a 72-hour loop. By the time investigators thought to check, the footage had been overridden. But the PI found backup files on the station owner's personal computer. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Daddy, you're crying again. I wiped my eyes, trying to focus on my daughter instead of the revelation that was reshaping everything I thought I knew about the worst night of our lives. I'm okay, Bug. Sometimes grown-ups cry when they find out important things. But as police sirens faded into the distance, carrying Patricia away from our home, I realized this new information created as many questions as it answered. If Patricia had known for 3 months that Sarah's accident wasn't my fault, why had she still tried to destroy me in court today? What else was she hiding? The next morning, I sat across from Assistant District Attorney Michael Chen, no relation, despite the shared surname, in a sterile conference room that smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. Emma was at emergency daycare, probably finger painting while her father tried to make sense of revelations that had kept me awake all night. Mr. Chen, ADA Chen began, sliding a manila folder across the table. Patricia Morrison's private investigator has provided us with some interesting findings about your wife's accident. Marcus leaned forward beside me. How long has the DA's office known about this additional evidence? Since 6 a.m. this morning. Mrs. Morrison's attorney delivered it as part of a plea negotiation. The ADA opened the folder, revealing still frames from grainy security footage. These images show a white Chevy Silverado, license plate obscured, running a red light at the intersection of Highway 101 and Maple Avenue at exactly 7:31 p.m. on February 14th last year. My hands trembled as I studied the photos. The timestamp showed 7:31 and 7 seconds p.m., 3 seconds before the drunk driver plowed into Sarah's Honda Civic. In the grainy footage, I could make out Sarah's car swerving left, trying to avoid the pickup truck that had blown through the intersection. So Sarah wasn't speeding to pick me up, I whispered. She was trying to avoid getting hit. ADA Chen nodded grimly. According to the accident reconstruction expert Mrs. Morrison hired, your wife's evasive maneuver actually saved the drunk driver's life. If she hadn't swerved, he would have T-boned the pickup at full speed. The irony was suffocating. Sarah died saving the life of a stranger who never even stopped to help her. There's more, the ADA continued. The private investigator traced the truck's partial license plate to 3 possible vehicles in the Bay Area. One belongs to Jeremy Walsh, a 34-year-old construction worker from San Jose. My blood went cold. Walsh? As in Judge Walsh? No relation. But here's where it gets complicated. ADA Chen pulled out another document. Mr. Walsh reported his truck stolen 4 hours after your wife's accident. Claims he was at work until 6 p.m., then went straight home to discover his vehicle missing. Marcus frowned. That's awfully convenient timing. Our thoughts exactly. We're reopening the vehicular manslaughter investigation, but Mr. Chen, I need to ask you directly, did Patricia Morrison ever mention this evidence to you before yesterday? I shook my head. Never. She's been blaming me for Sarah's death since the funeral. Telling anyone who'd listen that if I hadn't called Sarah to pick me up early. About that, the ADA interrupted. Mrs. Morrison claims you never actually called your wife that night. She says Sarah left her house in Sacramento at 6:45 p.m. for a different reason entirely. The room tilted. What other reason? ADA Chen consulted his notes. According to Mrs. Morrison, Sarah was driving to San Francisco to meet with a divorce attorney. Apparently, your wife had been planning to leave you. The words hit me like a physical blow. Marcus grabbed my arm as I swayed in my chair. That's impossible, I managed. Sarah and I were happy. We were talking about having another baby. Mrs. Morrison has phone records showing 17 calls between her and Sarah in the 2 weeks before the accident. She claims Sarah confided that she discovered some financial irregularities in your joint accounts. My mind raced. Financial irregularities? The only unusual activity had been my secret savings account, money I'd been setting aside for 2 years to buy Sarah the Cartier bracelet she'd admired at the jewelry store. I was planning to surprise her for our 6th anniversary in May. She was going to surprise me with divorce papers instead of picking me up from work. Mr. Chen, the ADA said quietly, we need to verify your whereabouts that entire evening. Because if Mrs. Morrison is telling the truth about Sarah's real destination, then your alibi for the time of the accident just disappeared. The implication hung in the air like poison gas. Patricia hadn't just accused me of child abuse, she was positioning me as a suspect in my own wife's death. The silence in the conference room stretched until I could hear the fluorescent lights humming overhead. ADA Chen was watching me carefully, probably looking for signs of guilt or deception, while Marcus had gone completely still beside me. My alibi didn't disappear, I said finally, my voice steadier than I felt. I was at work until 7:15 p.m. There are security cameras, badge swipes, witnesses. My colleague Jennifer Liu drove me home that night because my Honda was in the shop. She can verify everything. We'll need to speak with Ms. Liu, ADA Chen said, making a note. But Mr. Chen, I have to ask, were you aware that your wife had been researching divorce attorneys? The question felt like swallowing glass. No. Sarah never mentioned anything about divorce. We had dinner together the morning she died. She was excited about Emma's upcoming school play, talking about buying a new dress for the performance. Marcus leaned forward. What exactly is Mrs. Morrison claiming about these financial irregularities? ADA Chen pulled out another document. She says Sarah discovered that David had opened a secret checking account and had been transferring money from their joint savings for over 2 years. According to Mrs. Morrison, Sarah suspected her husband was either having an affair or planning to leave her. My heart pounded as the pieces clicked together. The Cartier account, I whispered. Excuse me. I did open a separate account, but it wasn't for what Patricia thinks. I pulled out my phone, scrolling frantically through my banking app. Look, Cartier Beverly Hills, monthly payments of $347 for 24 months. I was buying Sarah a bracelet for our anniversary. She'd fallen in love with it when we went shopping last Christmas, but it cost $8,000. I've been making payments since January 2022. I showed them the transaction history, 2 years of regular payments to Cartier, always on the 15th of each month. The final payment had been processed 3 days before Sarah died. ADA Chen studied my phone screen. Do you still have this bracelet? It's in my bedroom closet, still in the box. I never had a chance to give it to her. The admission came out broken. I'd looked at that unopened box every day for months, unable to return it but unable to bear seeing it. Marcus was already making calls. I'm sending someone to retrieve the bracelet and all documentation. This proves David's financial activities were legitimate. But ADA Chen wasn't satisfied. Mr. Chen, if Sarah had questions about your finances, why wouldn't she just ask you directly? Why contact divorce attorneys? That question had been eating at me since he'd first mentioned it. Sarah and I had always been completely open about money. We shared bank statements, discussed major purchases, planned our budget together every month. She wouldn't, I said firmly. Patricia is lying, or at best, misinterpreting something Sarah said. Maybe Sarah was researching attorneys for someone else. Her friend Monica was going through a nasty divorce around that time. Phone records show Sarah called Steinberg and Associates on February 12th and spoke for 18 minutes, ADH impressed. That's 2 days before the accident. She scheduled an appointment for February 15th at 8 p.m. February 15th. The day after Sarah died. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma's daycare, Emma asking when Daddy coming. Getting anxious. Can you call her, ? I need to call my daughter, I said, standing up abruptly. She's been through enough trauma without wondering if I've disappeared too. Of course, ADA Chen said, but his expression remained skeptical. Mr. Chen, one more question. Mrs. Morrison claims Sarah tried calling you multiple times that evening, but you didn't answer. She says that's why Sarah was driving to the city, because she couldn't reach you by phone. I pulled up my call log from February 14th, 2023, a date burned into my memory. Sarah called me at 6:23 p.m. We talked for 4 minutes. She said she was leaving Sacramento and would pick me up around 7:30. I told her I'd wait by the main entrance. Mrs. Morrison has Sarah's phone record showing 7 attempted calls to your number between 6:45 and 7:25 p.m., all going straight to voicemail. My blood went cold. That's impossible. My phone was working fine that night. Marcus was already pulling up my cellular records on his tablet. After a few minutes of scrolling, his face went pale. David, there's a gap in your call log. Between 6:30 and 8:15 p.m. that night, your phone shows no incoming or outgoing activity. But Jennifer called me at 7:15 to confirm she was picking me up. There's no record of that call, Marcus said quietly. The room was spinning. Either my memory of that night was completely wrong, or someone had tampered with phone records, or... Patricia's lying about the phone calls, I said desperately. She has to be. Why would she sit on evidence that could solve Sarah's accident for over a year, then suddenly produce it when she's facing criminal charges? ADA Chen closed his folder. That, Mr. Chen, is exactly what we intend to find out. As I walked to the hallway to call Emma, one thought kept circling through my mind like a vulture. If Patricia had been planning this character assassination for months, researching my finances and collecting evidence about Sarah's final days, then yesterday's custody hearing wasn't desperate grief. It was a carefully orchestrated attack. And I had no idea what other ammunition she was still hiding. The hallway outside the DA's office felt like a fishbowl, all glass walls and fluorescent lighting that made everything look harsh and unforgiving. I dialed Emma's daycare with shaking hands, trying to compartmentalize the bombshells that kept exploding around me. Daddy. Emma's voice was bright but carried that edge of anxiety I'd been hearing too much lately. Mrs. Peterson said you had important meetings today. Are you coming to get me soon? Soon, Bug. I promise. Are you having fun? I painted a house with a red door like ours, but Tommy said it looks more like a fire truck. She giggled, and the sound was like a lifeline pulling me back from the edge of panic. Daddy, did you remember to pack my goldfish crackers for snack time tomorrow? The question hit me harder than it should have. Normal parenting concerns in the middle of my life imploding. I'll remember, sweetheart. I love you. Love you more than ice cream. As I hung up, I caught my reflection in the glass wall, hollow-eyed, stubble-faced, wearing the same wrinkled shirt I'd thrown on at 5 a.m. after another sleepless night. I looked like exactly what Patricia's lawyer would want a jury to see, an unstable single father barely keeping it together. Marcus appeared beside me, his expression grim. David, we have a problem. I just got off the phone with Jennifer Lou. My stomach dropped. What did she say? She remembers driving you home that night, but she's not certain about the timing anymore. She says it could have been 7:15, but it might have been closer to 7:45. And David, she specifically remembers you being upset because Sarah wasn't answering her phone. The hallway tilted. That's not. I mean, I was worried when she was running late, but there's more. Jennifer says you called Sarah multiple times from her car, and each call went straight to voicemail. She remembers because you were getting increasingly frantic. Then why isn't that in my phone records? Marcus pulled me into an empty conference room. That's what we need to figure out. Either the records are incomplete, or there's something else going on. My phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. David? It's Patricia. Her voice was hoarse from crying, calling from what sounded like a jail phone. Please, I need 5 minutes. There are things about Sarah's death you don't understand. You've lost the right to tell me anything about my wife. The divorce attorney Sarah contacted, it wasn't about you. She was asking about custody laws because she was scared of me. I nearly dropped the phone. What? After I hired the private investigator to look into the accident, I found things. About the night Sarah died. About why she was really driving to the city. Patricia's voice broke. David, I think someone wanted Sarah dead, and they used my grief to frame you. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Marcus was gesturing frantically for me to keep her talking, already recording the call. What things, Patricia? The white pickup truck, Jeremy Walsh reported it stolen, but the theft report was filed before the accident happened. Someone backdated it to create an alibi. My blood went ice cold. Who? I don't know yet, but Sarah found out something dangerous. The day before she died, she came to my house terrified, saying someone had been following her. She wanted to take Emma and disappear for a while. You're lying. Sarah would have told me if. She tried to call you that night to warn you, David. 17 times between 6:45 and 7:30. But someone was jamming your phone signal. The conference room was spinning. If Patricia was telling the truth, then Sarah's death wasn't an accident at all. It was murder, and I'd been the intended scapegoat all along. The silence after Patricia's revelation stretched like a chasm. Marcus was frantically taking notes while I tried to process the idea that Sarah's death might have been orchestrated murder, not a tragic accident. Patricia, if this is true, why did you spend 14 months blaming me? Why put Emma through hell with false abuse accusations? Her sob echoed through the jail phone's tinny speaker. Because I believed you were involved at first. The timing seemed too convenient, your car in the shop, Sarah driving alone at night, your phone mysteriously not working. But when I hired the PI 3 months ago and saw the real evidence. You realized you'd been wrong about me, I finished. I realized we'd both been played. David, Sarah's appointment with the divorce attorney wasn't about leaving you, it was about getting a restraining order against someone who'd been stalking her. She told the lawyer she was afraid for Emma's safety. Marcus grabbed my arm. David, ask her about the financial records. Patricia, what about the secret bank account you mentioned in court? Sarah found it, but it wasn't yours. Someone had been using your social security number to open accounts, taking out loans in your name. She discovered it when she was organizing your tax documents for the anniversary surprise she was planning. My head spun. What anniversary surprise? She was going to surprise you with a weekend trip to Napa Valley. Found the Cartier receipts and wanted to plan something equally special. Patricia's voice cracked. David, my daughter loved you so much. She spent hours that week planning how to tell you about the identity theft without ruining your surprise. ADH burst into the conference room, his face flushed with urgency. Mr. Chen, we need to talk. Now. I looked at Marcus, who nodded grimly. Patricia, we'll call you back. ADH slammed a file on the table. Jeremy Walsh just confessed. 2 hours ago, San Jose PD arrested him for vehicular manslaughter. But there's more, Walsh was being blackmailed by someone who knew about the hit and run. He's been paying $1,500 monthly to a P.O. box registered under your wife's maiden name. The room went silent except for the air conditioning cycling on. Someone's been collecting money using Sarah's identity for over a year, ADH continued. Walsh thought he was paying Sarah to keep quiet about the accident. He had no idea she was already dead. Marcus leaned forward. Who's been collecting the money? That's what we're trying to figure out. But Mr. Chen, there's something else. The P.O. box was opened 3 days before your wife's accident by someone using her driver's license and social security number. I felt like I was drowning. So Sarah's death was planned. Someone set up the identity theft, arranged for her to be on that road at that exact time, then spent over a year collecting blackmail money in her name. While setting you up to take the fall if anyone got too close to the truth, ADH agreed. The false abuse allegations, the custody battle, even Mrs. Morrison's initial suspicions about your involvement, it was all designed to keep you on the defensive. My phone rang. Emma's daycare again. Mr. Chen. Emma's asking for you. She seems quite anxious, and it's almost closing time. I looked at ADH desperately. Can I go get my daughter? She's been through enough. He nodded. We'll continue this investigation, but Mr. Chen, all charges against you are being dropped immediately. Mrs. Morrison will be released as well, pending her cooperation with the murder investigation. As Marcus and I walked toward the exit, I felt a strange mixture of relief and terror. The nanny cam had saved me from false abuse charges, but it had also uncovered something much more sinister. Someone had murdered my wife and spent 14 months manipulating everyone around us to cover their tracks. But for the first time since Sarah died, I knew the truth. Emma and I were both victims, not enemies. And tomorrow, we'd start rebuilding our lives together, finally free from the lies that had nearly destroyed us. The real killer was still out there, but tonight, I was going home to my daughter. Finally, we were safe.